Hello there. Here we are with issue 58. Before I get started, I wanted to acknowledge the fact I find this so humorous. Um, I actually have been getting some copyright claims against my videos. I hadn't even noticed until I was uploading my video for Friday, and I got a copyright claim on it, basically saying that the audio file that I play at the beginning, which is Ride of the Valkyries. It's in public domain, and I downloaded it from the YouTube Studio audio library. Somebody called Awesomeness TV claims it was theirs, and it was from I finally got Twitter, or I officially got Twitter, or something like that. It's the most ridiculous claim I've ever heard. First of all, because they obviously don't even know what that is, but that same channel or whatever they are, they have made probably no less than 10 claims on some of my different videos going back several months. And so I just found it absolutely ridiculous. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And anybody that is a content creator, make sure you're checking your videos and making sure that you're not getting copyright claims. Now, I'm not even in a position to monetize my channel, but still doesn't mean that I want to have copyright claims against me. So maybe at sometime in the distant future, I'd be able to monetize my channel, and it would be nice to be able to do that without having a bunch of claims on my stuff. Plus, I'm not going to let them beat me up over it. So, all right, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and get into this issue. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the Alpha-3 Nimbus class V-Wing. Now, if you're like me, and I'm a big geek, so the first thing I thought of when I heard the Nimbus was Harry Potter. Like, how stupid is that? So, yeah, but that's where I went for some reason. These ships were not seen very much. In fact, I think there was only really one spot where you really would have had a chance to see them at all, and we'll talk about that. So. Um, More commonly known as the V-Wing, was developed to excel in battle against large numbers of enemies. This was a role for which the fast, agile V-Wing was ideal. It was able to achieve an impressive maximum speed of 52,000 kilometers per hour. That's freaking cruising, making it the only Republic ship able to match the Eta 2 and Delta 7 Astir Sprite class Jedi starfighters. However, to achieve this performance, the V-Wing's wedge-shaped spaceframe was primarily designed for speed, and an objective that was achieved by the omission of many onboard systems, including any form of life support. There were several. There were several respects in which the V-Wing bore a resemblance to the Delta 7 Aetherspike class Jedi starfighter. One key similarity was the lack of hyperdrive unit, another sacrifice to speed. However, like the Jedi vessels, V-Wings could dock with booster ring to achieve long distance traveling. I found this rather interesting. So it was also built at the Quad Systems Engineering by Walex Blesix, and he's the same one that built the Jedi Starfighters. When he laid down the design of the V-Wing, Blesix was able to take advantage of his knowledge from the special modifications that Jedi Knights Anakin Skywalker, Plo Koon, and Saesee Tiin had made to their own Delta 7 starfighters, along with some new ideas of his own. One reason that the Delta 7 starfighter were so fast was due to highly skilled Jedi pilots who used the Force to help guide them. The lackluster speed of the bulky V-19 Torrents could not match the Delta 7 starfighters, which had frequently led to the Jedi leaving their fighter squadron behind, flying alone in a vulnerable and unprotected state. Blissix understood this problem and saw a way to resolve it, overseeing the creation of new computer flight systems based on complex tactical flight routines. When these systems were installed, the V-Wings in the V-Wings, they gave the boost to the reaction times to their clone pilots, allowing them to keep up with the Jedi at last. And on either side of the V-Wing's hull were a pair of folding wings that extended above and below the vehicle. This unique feature was also used for landing, with the lower wing folding downwards to act as a form of landing gear. Upwards to the rear of the ship, located above the two vertical stacked ion drive thrusters, were two deflector shield heat sinks, which also provided extra protection for the pilot. Long service. After the end of the Clone Wars, a small number of V-Wings remained in service under the Galactic Empire, although these later incarnations of the starfighter omitted the astromech, leaving the craft to be flown by the pilot alone. These starfighters were eventually succeeded by the Imperial TIE Fighter and its variants, but all of these ships incorporated elements of the V-Wing into their designs. So as it mentioned, it had the clones would have had an astromech, and the astromech sat right behind them. And this is what a pilot would have looked like. I believe this is probably from, I'm assuming from Clone Wars, the Clone Wars show, but I don't know for sure. The Clone Wars. The V-Wings were first deployed in the Republic in the final months of the Clone Wars and quickly became the most numerous starfighters in the fleet, overtaking the older V-19 Torrents as they were unable to fly long distances due to their lack of on-board hyperdrive units. The V-Wings were launched en masse from Republic capital ships. The standard tactic was to use the speed and agility in support of the more heavily armored ARC-170 starfighters, but V-Wings were effective assault weapons in their own right. Their twin rapid-fire laser cannons were swivel-mounted on each of the two wing struts, providing a wide range of fire against their enemies. This is very important. So this is where you would have seen them. The only time I think I can ever remember seeing them. While he was still Supreme Chancellor of the Galactic Republic, Palpatine commissioned quad drive systems to give a small number of V-Wing starfighters an added hyperspace capability without the use of boostering. These specialized ships were modified to include an onboard hyperdrive unit along with upgraded shields. When the self-declared Emperor flew to Mustafar to rescue the ravaged body of Darth Vader from the lava there, his shuttle was escorted by 3 of these V-Wings flown by highly trained pilots. The convoy then flew back to the Emperor's Surgical Reconstruction Center on Coruscant, where the teams of skilled medical droids operated on Vader and placed him in a cybernetic suit in order to survive. So I wanted to show you this image here. Make sure that you saw that. That's basically what they're talking about. So you would have seen that in Revenge of the Sith. Okay, the substitute or TIE substitute for behind the scenes here. Rob Coleman, the special effects supervisor in Revenge of the Sith, originally considered showing Imperial TIE fighters at the end of the film. However, George Lucas decided to introduce the new V-Wings instead, as the Empire would have almost 20 years of transition to building the TIE fighters that were seen in A New Hope. However, to make it clear that the TIE fighter was a linear descendant of the V-Wing, the new ship's engines were given similar sound effects. So there you go. Pretty cool. Visiting Rodia. So, some of these planets are kind of, whatever. But so Rodia is, so Greedo, he was a Rodian, and so he would have came from here. The important part of this is that, so the Rodians became great hunters, and basically, they didn't mind their planet very well, and they caused a lot of damage to their ecosystem by killing off all the creatures. They basically had to. They started off having to fight to and kill off all of the major um, uh, predators on the planet in order to survive. So they became very adept at hunting. Well, they didn't know when to stop, and between killing off so much stuff and messing up their ecosystem that way, then they also just got heavily industrialized and didn't take care of their planet, and so the atmosphere became very polluted and horrible. So that's kind of the basic part, and basically all the cities would have these pollution shields. So, and it talks about that here. Occupying a waterlogged world that is mostly made up of oceans, swamps, rainforests, and jungles, the Rhodians used their increasing skills with technology and construction to develop vast cities, choosing sites located on the many waterways that lattice their way across the planet. They enveloped many of their cities with enormous environmental shields that were designed to allow access in and out for visiting vessels, ships, and speeders. Generations of industrial development had belched millions of tons of toxic gases into the skies of Rodia, magnifying the already reflective atmosphere and intensifying the greenhouse effect. So the shields had a twofold purpose. Firstly, they protected the inhabitants from the increasing temperatures, and secondly, they sealed out the noxious atmosphere that was slowly trying to heal itself. So yeah, they were kind of rough on their stuff, but they became very well known as hunters and bounty hunters and that kind of stuff. So before the arrival of the Republic Scouts led to their first interaction with the wider galaxy, Rodia's inhabitants had already hunted and wiped out many of their ecosystem's top predators, evolving from small rock-dwelling lizards. The Rhodians had been forced to hunt, survive, and subsist. So I kind of talked about that. Wars and conflicts broke out across Rhodia, all due to their non-insatiable urge to hunt. By the time the Republic made contact, the planet's ecosystem had been damaged almost beyond any hope of repair. Moreover, the violent outcome of those first meetings almost scoopered any chance of Rodia joining the wider Galactic Society. Clan hunting parties mercilessly targeted the first Republic scouts and might have wiped them out completely. Luckily for them, Rodia's ruling Grand Protector saw the possibilities and opportunities afforded by the chance to hunt in an endless galactic sandbox and ordered the scouts to be spared. So, they're like I said, they're very astute hunters. Um, so they ended up joining uh, the Republic, and so they embarked upon the galaxy-wide careers as bounty hunters, slavers, and soldiers of fortune. On Rodia itself, cities developed exponentially, encroaching upon jungles and swamps and spewing toxic gases and fumes into the rich atmosphere. Equator City developed into a hotbed of weapons factories as demand for the planet's highly skilled mercenaries, trackers, and hunters grew throughout a local galactic region that, while well developed, was always on the lookout for new and unexpected operators. Given the planet's unique history and the tough upbringing many of the native Rhodians endured, a natural penchant for betrayal was never far away. Worlds near the Savarine sector learned not to take the promises of the Rhodian at face value, and that it was best to exercise caution. During the final days of the Republic, the Rhodian representative in the Senate, Onaconda Farr, handed Senator Padme Amidala over to Newt Gunroy of the Trade Federation in return for much-needed relief supplies. However, as a lifelong friend of Amidala, he managed to put his treacherous action right and kept the world a part of the Republic, although the war came to Rodia and famine hit the planet hard. So yeah, he was great friends with Amidala, but he still tried to sell her down the river. And he only because he felt a little bit guilty did he change change his mind or whatever. This was actually really interesting. Rodia was fortunate after the fall of the Republic and the installation of the Empire. The Imperials admired the skills of the planet's hunters and, having employed so many over the years, left the planet largely alone. Thus, Rodia was spared the indignity of enslavement that many other worlds across the galaxy had been forced to suffer. So, pretty cool. Moving home. So this was a little bit interesting here. In the days of the first West End games released and the early development of what would become known as the Expanded Universe, the world of Rodia was thought to occupy a place in the mid-rim. However, in 2008, Season 1 of the Star Wars The Clone Wars established that Rodia is in fact in the Outer Rim, right on the very edge of both regions at the Corward edge of the Savarine sector. It's unclear as to why the change was made, although in universe there is every reason to argue that border changes and regional redevelopment programs might have changed the identification from mid-rim to outer rim. So basically there's a way that you could justify that change, but yeah. So there you go. That was Rodia. Now we're going to talk about environmental suits. And so there's not a lot really special about this section. So basically, it's going to talk about spacesuits and whatnot. I mean, if you're familiar with science fiction and reality, it all makes sense. So basically, they have to be sealed for pressure. So they have to be able to provide pressure and air and all that kind of stuff. And they also have to keep you warm because you're out in space where you're dealing with absolute zero type stuff. So I won't really go through all that kind of stuff, but we will talk about this. All enviro suits protect the user's body from harmful aspects of the environment, but their function vary according to the wearer's physiology. Most species need to carry some of their own atmosphere with them for breathing and for maintaining pressure around their body. This is usually supplied from a high-pressure tank mounted on the suit. Maintaining an even pressure inside the suit is very important. Most species' bodies have internal spaces filled with gases. When these are exposed to low pressure, the expansion of these gases can cause internal ruptures that could prove fatal. The suit usually needs to maintain a comfortable temperature, insulating its wearer both from the absolute zero of deep space and the searing heat of nearby stars. Similarly, the suit's fabric needs to seal out harmful radiation. It is also essential for the suit to allow as much free movement as possible, although where suits are used in zero gravity, they are usually fitted with jetpacks or some other means of propulsion. So that's kind of cool. And so this part here talks about how the better the suit, the easier it is to put on and all that kind of stuff. And some of them even have built-in food and water supplies for the real expensive ones. Han Solo's spacesuit is carried in the Millennium Falcon starboard airlock wall locker. It is a worn but serviceable military surplus Lifeline Technologies Medic Model 10, which has a number of similarities to a TIE fighter pilot's spacesuit. Solo practiced at being able to slip it on in under 2 minutes, climbing in through the rear and safely securing all the locking rings that might make it airtight. The Medic Model 10 provides up to 8 hours of life support, or 4 days if it's hooked up to a larger air supply tanks. A separate gear harness makes it possible to clip on to the ship's exterior and carry out inspections and repairs securely. The spacesuit's integrated boots include electromagnetic grippers to ensure that the wearer stays on the ship's hull, and signal flares are mounted on the left boot in case its wearer gets into trouble. So there you go. And now this one's just kind of, generic, whatever. This part here was especially interesting. According to Scientific American, animal experiments in the 1960s and human accidents show that dogs, chimpanzees, and people can survive exposure to vacuum conditions for around a couple of minutes and recover with few ill effects. A Johnson Space Center technician blacked out for 12 to 15 seconds after accidentally depressurizing his suit inside a vacuum chamber, but regained consciousness after 27 seconds when pressure was restored. He reported that the moisture on his tongue had begun to boil, and he lost the ability to taste for 4 days. In any system, there is always the possibility of equipment failure leading to injury or death. That's just a risk you run when you are in a hostile environment and you depend upon the equipment around you, said Dartmouth Medical School professor and former NASA astronaut J.C. Buckey, author of the book Space Physiology, adding, "But if you can get to someone quickly, that is good. Often spacewalks are done with two spacewalkers and there is continuous communication, so if someone is having a problem, hopefully the other can get them and bring them in." So I found that rather interesting that you can actually survive for, a couple minutes potentially. So that was kind of cool. Yeah. That is everything for this issue 58. And again, issue 59, we're going to get a couple more pieces of framework and some more hull plating, and then we're going to get some of these parts that go to hold the hull plating or the framework together. So that's what we'll be doing, hopefully, in issue 59. I want to thank you all for stopping by and checking this out, and may the force be with you always.